How's everyone doing out there in YouTube land? How's everyone doing out there? I think we'll wait a little while for other people to log in here. All right, let's nail some brass. Who's out there? Let yourself be known out in the chat box here. We're gonna nail some 556. I'm bored and I want something to do. So I figured I'd nail some brass. So if you guys are just getting into annealing, this should be right up your alley. So yeah, I got my test brass here. I got 100 pieces, actually 101 pieces of 556 brass I'm gonna anneal. And yeah, we just started this live feed here, so I'm gonna wait a little longer here for some other people to join in before we start. Just let me know how the sound is, if you guys can hear me okay. Let me know in the chat box, that'd be great. So yeah, today I am using my do-it-yourself annealer. I'm actually not using my Annealese over here. Let's see, actually got you guys portable so you guys can check it all out. So I actually have the Annealese here also. Watching you guys right here, so let yourself know, be known in the chat box so I can see you. So if you're out there, let yourself be known. But I have the Annealese here. I decided to actually use the do-it-yourself annealer, and I actually have a video showing you how to use this annealer and how to make it from scratch for about 100 bucks. You know, the Annealese you can usually get for about $275. And hey Soldiers, how you doing, buddy? Nice for you to log in here. So yeah, we're going to use this do-it-yourself annealer, and I actually have a video showing how to make this annealer for about 100 bucks, and there's a parts list in the description box, so check that out if you guys want to learn how to use that annealer. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer here for some more people to log in. So yeah, we just started this live broadcast, and I am bored out of my mind. And I figured I would anneal 100 pieces of 556 Lake City brass. This brass has actually been sitting around for some time now, and it's pretty tarnished. I think it's been sitting around here for damn near a year, and that's why it's so tarnished. So it's probably not going to show the annealing that great like brand new brass or brass that's just been freshly cleaned. But I figure rather than letting this sit around all day long, we'll get this stuff annealed. So let's check out some of your comments here. So Brastard 762, I'm not sure how much to anneal. Did some 7.62 by 54 by hand the other day with a metal rod and torch. So I've said this before and I'll say this again. Yeah, you can. Let me guys get myself here in the picture a little bit better. You can do it by hand if you want. There's really no right or wrong method to this. But for me personally, I like to use a machine of some sort to get a consistent anneal. If you're using a torch method, it really is all about timing, and it's right down to the split second, even a half second make the difference. And the name of the game here is to get that brass out of that flame consistently, and in order to get a consistent anneal, you really should have some type of machine like this that you can set with a timer, at least for me personally, and you want it to drop out of that flame consistently, and that's really what it's all about. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer here for some more people to join in. And like I said, if you're just joining in on this live feed before we start annealing, I'm using my do-it-yourself annealer. You can make this for roughly about 100 bucks. It's really easy. You don't have to be really technically inclined to really make this. And I have a video showing you how to make this annealer. And I have a parts list in the description box below, and that you can find that video in my video listing there. And I do use the Anneal these from time to time. And, you know, it's an amazing machine. But for now, I thought I'd keep it simple, stupid, and just use the do-it-yourself annealer. So, yeah, you have to single feed it, you know, but for 100 pieces, it really doesn't take that long. And it only takes about 5 seconds a piece. So it doesn't really take that long. So got good old Yukon 454 here, says sound good. Brastard 7.62 says need to do some 30-30 before they start cracking. So it just says always nice to gain some knowledge. Thanks for coming online. Gates Jr. reloading. Hey brother, nice to have you along there, buddy. So why do we anneal? And there are two main reasons, at least for me, the reason why I anneal. Actually, there's a few more reasons of that. But the big two would be getting a consistent headspace bump. And I found by annealing, you can get a very, very consistent headspace bump. If you notice while you're bumping that brass, you're resizing that brass, full length for sizing it, and your headspace bumps are all over the place. Annealing, at least for me, I anneal every single time. I know some guys anneal every other time, maybe every third time. I think me personally, I try to anneal at least every other time. I like to anneal every single time because it really doesn't take that long to do. But that will definitely help with getting very consistent headspace bumps. The other reason why I would suggest annealing is consistent neck tension. In order to get consistent velocities, you need to have consistent neck tension, and annealing will definitely help with that. And if your neck tension is all over the place and one piece of brass has more neck tension than the next, the one that has more neck tension will create greater pressures inside that brass, and greater pressures mean more velocity, and more velocity means it's going to impact paper differently compared to the next piece that has less neck tension. So that's important to do that. So Gun Websites is on. That's thanks for showing up there, my friend. You bet, no problem with the show. And it's pretty rare for me to do a live event. I have done them before in the past, but I figured, you know, this won't take long. I figured I'd just do a quick annealing session for you guys. So I'll wait a little bit longer here for you guys. So if you guys got any questions, let them rip. How's my sound, by the way? Someone make that comment here, so let me know how the sound is here on this live feed. Okay, so there are numerous methods to annealing. Obviously, one of them you guys already mentioned, and that was by hand. You know, you could put a socket in a drill. You can do it by hand. Personally, like I mentioned earlier, I don't like to do that because I personally don't think you can get a consistent anneal by doing that by hand. Like I said, you need some type of machine, especially if you're doing a flame style method where that piece of brass can consistently drop out of the flame to the very millisecond. I got this do-it-yourself annealer. I got the Anneal Ease. I would say the Anneal Ease, in my opinion, is probably the most popular, most affordable annealer you can usually get for about $275. And I actually put my own digital display on this, and I'll just bring you guys over here. So I put my own digital display on my Anneal Ease. The newer Anneal Ease has a digital display built into it. I actually know Jeff Buck quite well, and I think part of that was due to the reason that I put mine on here, and so many people were asking for it. Because I actually do not use Tempolac when I anneal my brass. I actually use what's called the glow method. And everyone has their own method to their madness, and no one's right or wrong. It's just what I happen to do. I use the glow method. I don't use Tempolac. So you can obviously do it with a flame. You can also do a salt bath method. You know, salt bath, I personally have never done it before. I know some people have good luck with salt bath annealing. For me personally, I think if I had to deal with molten salt for annealing brass, I kind of cringe every time I think about that. But there's nothing wrong with that. I know people that definitely use salt bath annealing. And I've said this before in the reloading world, in regards to buy the best equipment that you can absolutely afford. And the equipment that I have is the best that I can afford. You know, I could probably upgrade some of these parts to something better. But for right now, what I have in my reloading room in regards to, you know, washing brass, dropping powder, doing, you know, brass prep or annealing, whether it's the do-it-yourself annealer or the annealese, it seems to be working out quite well for me. But with that being said, if you guys can afford an amp, which is the annealing made perfect, I would highly suggest getting the amp. They're expensive, but in my personal opinion, you are not going to get a better and more consistent anneal than the annealing made perfect. And now, especially that they have auto loaders for the annealing made perfect, it's going to be expensive, thousands of dollars. But if you are very serious about reloading, especially if you're in the bench rest rifle community or you're trying to get the most ultimate precision reloads, it's pretty hard to beat the amp or the annealing made perfect. So let me check out some of your comments here, guys. So Amanda Puckmeyer, yeah, she says sound great. Thank you. Vanessa Kitty says hi. Let's see here, Bastard 7.62. I'm just making plinking ammo and want the brass to last as long as I can. So that's a good point that you just made there, making sure the brass lasts as possible, as long as it can by annealing. And it definitely helps with softening that brass, and that's exactly what annealing does. It softens the brass, and it definitely helps with less splitting of your necks. By annealing that brass, it softens it up over a period of time of reloading, and that brass expanding into that chamber when you fire it, and then you resize it and you shrink that brass back down in the spec. Without annealing, you're going to get what's called case hardening, and that brass, especially in semi-automatic, and especially something like 223, it's pretty notorious for the necks to split. The neck will literally split, and you'll start to see that in about even the third or fourth fire if you don't anneal. So that's definitely something that helps out tremendously, other than consistent head bumps when sizing the brass and consistent neck tension. It definitely increases that longevity of the brass. That's a really good point that you made there. So Steve H says, when do you anneal, before resizing or after? And that's a good question there, Steve. And you definitely want to anneal before you resize. That's the whole point of it, really, in my opinion, is to get that consistent head bump on that brass. When you resize that brass and you fire that round in your rifle's chamber, that brass expands. Brass is malleable, and with high pressures like that, that firing pin hits that primer, that powder ignites, that bullet goes down your rifle's bore, that brass expands and fire forms to your rifle's chamber. And it expands and it shrinks just ever so slightly, maybe a thousandth of an inch, maybe 2/1000 of an inch, and it's ejected. And when you resize that brass, you full length resize it, you put it back into spec, and you bump that data line or the shoulder of the brass back into spec, the body's back into spec. And usually that brass has got to go somewhere. It can't just disappear when you put it back into spec. That brass will usually grow in length, and that's where you usually would trim the brass. And by annealing the brass, it softens that brass, and that's what gives you your consistent headspace bumps. And definitely 100% you want to anneal before you resize. Anneal after you resize is a waste of time. So let's see what else you guys have for questions here. All right, American Reloader, thanks for subscribing. I really appreciate that. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer here for more people to log in here before we anneal this up with the do-it-yourself annealer. And if you're just joining in, I am using the Elfster's do-it-yourself annealer that you can make for roughly about $100. I have a video in my video list that shows you how to make this, and check out the description box below that video. I have a full parts list, every part, the case, the drum, the motor, the shaft, you name it, the digital readout, it's all in there for you guys. And I've had hundreds of people make this annealer using that list and message me on Facebook and on YouTube, and they say it works awesome. And you don't really need to be mechanically inclined to make this do-it-yourself annealer. So, all right, so let's get going here. Looks like we got about 20 people watching right now. Now, like I said before, some people like to use Tempolac. I personally don't use Tempolac. I use what's called the glow method. And what I like to do is I got this batch of test brass here. This brass should have been thrown away a long time ago. And the only reason why I keep this brass around, and this box actually says 223 test brass for annealing, is to set the timer in the torch. And that's why I like to use a mechanical method, a machine of some sort, to anneal, because the name of the game is, especially if you're using a flame style, is you want this brass to fall out of the flame consistently every single time. And it only takes a second, even a half a second, to have inconsistent annealing. And inconsistent annealing is going to be inconsistent headspace and neck tension. So if you guys have any questions, let them rip here. So let's get going on this. And I got you guys on a portable tripod here so I can move you around. So that's the nice part about this. So I'm going to move you up to my annealer here. Okay, so I got my 100 pieces of 556 brass right here that I'm going to anneal. And then in this box, I have my test brass. And actually, I think I'm going to back you guys up here a little bit more. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn on my flame. And usually what I like to do personally is I like to get about an inch of flame here. Now you're going to notice there is a outer flame and then there's a hotter inner flame. And what I personally like to do is get that flame about 1 inch long, and I like to get the blue hotter inner flame, the very tip of that flame, about 1/4 of an inch off the brass where the neck meets the shoulder. So if I can get a pen here for you guys. So let's see if you guys can make this out. So right where the neck comes down and breaks off to the shoulder at this point right here, if this pen represents the flame and the tip of this pen represents the hotter blue inner flame, not the outer flame, but the hotter blue inner flame, I'll usually get the tip of that hotter blue inner flame about 1/4 of an inch off where the neck meets the shoulder. And I don't get it smoking red hot. You know, usually I get that flame about 1 inch long. And I will set the heat of the flame and the timer, the digital readout, by using my test brass. So let's get going on here. Looks like we got 23 people watching right now. So let's stoke this torch up here. So first things first is make sure you always have these on, your safety glasses, whenever you're annealing. So that's really important. So let me get you guys a little bit closer here. If you guys got any questions, let them rip. Now the name of the game is I usually try to get this hotter blue inner flame about 1 inch long. So I'm going to lower this heat down a little bit. So that hotter blue inner flame, which you can see is right here, it's about 1 inch long, and then there's the outer flame, which comes out to about right here. But the name of the game is you want that hotter blue inner flame about 1 inch long, maybe a little less, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to get our test brass here, and we're going to set up the timer and the heat. So I think the heat's right. We got about an inch on that inner blue frame. Now I like to use what's called the glow method. And the second that neck starts to glow, I get it out of the flame. I don't use Tempelac, I use what's called the glow method. Like I said, the second that neck starts to glow, not super red hot, but just starts to glow orange, you get it out of the flame. Now in order to do that, hey, is your 6 covered? Nice to have you along, buddy. We're annealing some brass. So in order to do the glow method, I got to turn the lights down a little bit. So let me turn these lights down. Now you want to play it safe, you know, leave some lights on. You don't want it pitch dark, but in order to get your timer and your flame set just right, you got to have it somewhat reasonably dark in here. So let's grab this test brass and we're going to get this drum moving here. I don't know if you guys can see this here. I can get the drum moving a little bit, lower this digital readout to about 39. Now, this first piece of brass is just to set the location of the brass. This isn't about setting the timer or the heat, it's just the location. And I want that inner blue flame about 1/4 of an inch off where it meets, the shoulder meets the neck. So I'm going to throw that back up there. So right about there. Now you can see that brass was going red hot there, man, way too hot. So I'm going to grab another piece of test brass. Now remember, this is test brass. This isn't my real reloading brass. I don't care if I destroy this brass. It's already destroyed. This brass is just for setting the timer and the location of the torch. Now you want the tip of that inner blue flame, and I'll see if I can get you guys a little bit closer here. You want the tip of that inner blue flame about 1/4 of an inch off where the neck meets the shoulder. And I'd say that is just about perfect. So the location's set now. So I'm gonna lower the lights down here a little bit more. We're gonna grab one more piece of brass here. I'm gonna lower this timer down a little. All right, that's almost perfect. The name of the game here is we want that brass to drop out of the flame the second the neck starts to glow. So I'm going to cup this with my hand a little more so I can see the glow of the brass. You guys might be able to make this glow. It's a little too hot. I'm going to speed this timer up just a little bit. And this digital readout has nothing to do with seconds or anything. It just tells me how much amperage is going to the motor of the annealer. And if I need to speed it up, I increase the digital readout. And you guys might not be able to see this on camera, but I can see it on my end that the neck of that brass just starts to glow. And it just starts to glow right there, and it comes out of the flame. And I think it needs to get just a little bit hotter. So I'm going to lower this down to about 35. So that looks really good. So I'm going to empty this pan. These pieces are red hot, so I'm going to drop that into a glass bowl. Now I'm actually going to move on to my real brass, my actual brass that I'm reloading. So let's take one piece of the brass we're actually reloading. I'm going to check. Yeah, it just starts to glow. I'm going to lower this down just a little bit to 34 on the readout. Let me see if I can get you guys even closer here. All right, so you see how that neck just starts to glow when it dropped out? That's the name of the game. The second it starts to glow, get it out of the flame. So let me get the lights back on here so we're playing safe. All right, so now I got the torch set up just right. the timer set just right, so that means the heat is set just right. Now I can just go to town. It really is that easy. What, less than 5 pieces, I think? I got this all set up. Now, one thing you definitely want to keep an eye on is the length of your flame. You want to make sure that flame doesn't start to die down. If that flame starts to die down, that means you're running out of propane. And it's definitely not good. So you guys got to give me a second to anneal this brass before I read your questions. Obviously I got a live flame in my reloading room. So now, one thing you want to keep an eye out for is annealing marks. You want that annealing mark to come down roughly about 1/4 of an inch off where the top of the shoulder. And annealing marks will differ depending on a few things. How new the brass is, if it's brand new, shiny brass. If you just wash the brass, or the brass has been laying around like this stuff is pretty tarnished. This stuff has been laying around for, it seems like, a half a year. It is pretty tarnished, so it's not going to show annealing marks as well. And older brass compared to new brass will show less annealing marks. So I'm going to count this next piece after this. I'm going to see how long this is in this flame here. So 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. So almost 6. I would say about 5.5 seconds. So Jeff Allen's asking, do you use the test brass over again after heating it up? And yes, I've used this test brass, I wouldn't say hundreds of times, but damn near 100. And it doesn't matter. This has been annealed too many times as test brass. You're literally just using this to set the glow. And that's it. Once the glow is set, you drop that super hot brass in this glass bowl here. And I actually don't mind this do-it-yourself annealer. I mean, yeah, you still got to single feed it, but if you think about it, even if I use something like my Anneal that has a self-feeding hopper, you still got to self-feed the hopper. So, you know, I usually reload in increments of 50 or 100 pieces anyways. So, regardless if I'm using the do-it-yourself single feed annealer or if I'm using the Anneal that has a self-feeding hopper, I guess I really don't care. You know, if I was doing something like 300 pieces, I'd definitely use the Anneal for sure. Let me check out some of your comments here. In Steel CA, party on, man. That's awesome. Says, I need one of those. I'm tired of doing it by hand. Yeah, trust me, you don't want to do it by hand, especially if you want a consistent anneal. Consistency is the #1 word in the reloading and precision shooting community. Consistency applies to everything, whether it's annealing or running your press and running the handle just right for a consistent headspace bump. Gotta make sure I'm not moving this annealer. Looks good. To even shooting your firearms, you know, your trigger pull, your breathing, making sure you got a consistent cheek weld to come down in that buttstock, making sure that that cheek weld is perfect. Everything is about consistency. So hitting Steel CA says, what if you don't get a proper anneal, say too short of time? So if you get too short of time, it's like you're not doing anything. It's obviously the bad thing would be to over anneal. And if you over anneal, you can get a split neck just like that. So I'd be more concerned about over annealing than under annealing. And if you do under anneal, you can just do it again. But I know a good question is, how often do you anneal? I anneal every single time I reload because it really doesn't take that long, especially if I use the Anneal Ease with the self-feeding hopper. But once in a while, I like to get a little nostalgic here and bust out the do-it-yourself annealer that you can make for roughly $100. And if you're just joining us, like I mentioned before, I got a video showing you how to make this do-it-yourself annealer for roughly about $100. And in that description box of the video, I have a parts list showing you how to make this. I think that video has about, I don't know, 140,000 views on it. It's about four years old. So. Can you guys hear me okay? Is the sound still good? Just let me know. Ooh, good old Eagle Eye shooting here. The cool people know who's got a good channel. Thanks, my friend. You know, Eagle Eye Shooting, I highly recommend his channel. And if you guys are watching right now and you are in the chat box here, click on that Eagle Eye Shooting and definitely check out his channel. Man, he really knows his stuff. You really got to subscribe to his channel. He's a super good guy. Man, if you don't get along with that guy, there's something wrong with you. Another channel I'd highly recommend checking out is Your Six Covered. You know, Is Your Six Covered and X-Ring. I'd definitely check out both of their channels. Rick with Is Your Six Covered, he's such an awesome guy. And his live feeds are infectious. They really are. So you got to check out Is Your Six Covered channel for sure. And I really appreciate his live feeds. And he's really coming up in the shooting community. I think he's got a couple silencers coming in here, if I remember correctly. But Matthew says, do you reload 12 gauge? I do not reload any shotgun. Sorry, I just don't. I'm I would say more of a precision long-range rifle shooter. Shooting bug hole groups type of thing. So Hit the Steel CA says, how much are you selling those things for, Todd? So I was actually thinking about making these and selling them. But I just don't have time. I mean, I have a full-time job. I'm an estimator by trade. I estimate materials for houses and commercial buildings. And I work a full-time job, and my whole channel and teaching people how to pump out freedom and reloads and go in the range and get the most accuracy out of their firearm. That's my passion. It's my hobby, and that's just what I like to do. I don't know if you're new to my channel and you check out my videos, I put a lot of time in my editing, and I really enjoy editing my videos as much as I like shooting my firearms and shooting that video of me shooting those firearms. So, all right, so we got about 26 people watching here. Applause. Yeah, so, yep. So Plow makes a good comment there. If you want a consistent headspace bump, you want to make resizing effortless, you really should anneal. Like I mentioned earlier, I anneal every single time I reload. Now, one thing while you're doing the glow method, and if it gets too hot, if you ever see an orange flame or a red flame coming off that brass and you go past the point of that neck glowing, that means you're burning the elements out of that brass. You're literally burning the copper and tin out of that brass, and that's bad. So the second that neck starts to glow, get that brass out of the flame, like I showed you guys earlier. So, and I actually not only have a video showing you how to make this annealer for $100, but there's another video showing you how to use it, and that's in my reloading start to finish playlist, which is in my playlist area. It's a 9-part series, very in-depth. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better reloading series, especially if you're new to the game, than that playlist. So check that out. Let me read some of your comments here. So It really is that easy. We just crunched through 100 pieces like it was nothing. And that's it. Done. And it really is that simple. It shouldn't take that long to set up the location of the flame, the hotness or the length of the flame itself. Get this set up just right. Just play around with that timer setting just right. And like I showed you guys earlier, I did it in what, 6 pieces here. Less, you know, if I wasn't doing this on camera, I can literally set this annealer and the flame and the heat just right in less than a minute. And once you get a method to your madness down, it really is that easy. So if you guys got any questions, you better let them rip here, because we're going to shut this down here soon. So Plow was saying I resize every single time also. Same here. I anneal every single time. I think you mean you anneal every time. Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, at a bare minimum, I wouldn't advise annealing by hand with a drill. I know some guys take a drill and they put a socket in there and they stick their brass in there. The problem is with doing that is you got to think like a machine if you're trying to do that, and you need to get that brass out of the flame consistently every single time. Well, try doing that 100 times. Yeah, you might be able to do it, but you're not going to get as consistent of a nail like you would with a machine, something like this do-it-yourself annealer, or if you're just joining us, the Anneal, which I have right here. You can easily get this thing for, I think, $275 shipped. I know that Jeff Buck over at Anneal, good guy, and he backs up his product. And that's the bare minimum I would recommend doing, is at least the do-it-yourself annealer or get the Anneal. And like I said, buy the absolute best equipment that you can afford for your reloading room. And if you have the money, and money is not an issue, get the amp. The Annealing Made Perfect, you're not going to get a better annealer than that. And I know there's some other induction annealers out there, especially I know a couple guys, I can't name names, they are coming out with a new induction annealers. I'm hoping to get one here soon to test out. But right now, the Annealing Made Perfect, especially if you get that auto feeder, man, I mean, that what do they call it? The auto mate for the amp, man, that is the best of the best that you can get for annealing brass. So, so Jeff Allen, make sure to upvote the video, guys. Yes, definitely, and I appreciate that. Hit that not only the subscribe button, the notification bell, but smash that like button. And be straight up honest with you guys, the good old YT is not making it easy on me to make these videos. I will continue to make these videos regardless, but like all things in this world, everyone needs somewhat of an incentive, and the old YT definitely doesn't make it easy on me. And it seems like half of those videos I do get demonetized. So if you can, please become a Patreon. I can't express in words how much that helps me. Even if it's just a couple bucks to keep my content going. If you like my content, if you feel like you learned something from my content, become a Patreon. It definitely helps. So let me read some of your other comments here. So Hitting Steel says, yo Eagle, I have 3 pairs of 5.11. Okay, that means nothing in the hunting world. So so Plow saying I got the Anneal also. It's a great product. So yeah, if you guys got any questions, let them rip. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. And like I said, I anneal every single time. Now, like I was mentioning earlier with annealing marks, you're not going to see it on this brass, because this brass it's been cleaned, and you definitely want clean brass when you anneal. You don't want to anneal dirty brass. So when I first pull out brass, and I can show you guys down here. So this is, I always organize my brass by the amount of fires on the brass. And if you watch my How to Reloading series, you can see that this brass is once fired. 223. You know, I got some brass in here that has 2 or 3 fires, so I know exactly how many fires are on that brass. When I pull that brass out especially with Lake City brass that has crimp primers. I pull that stuff out and I decap that brass with my decapper. So I got my FW Arms decapper here, and I pop out that primer so we get consistent headspace bumps, eliminate those cratered primers, and then I throw it in usually my Frankfurt Arsenal rotary stainless steel washer, or the Tumbler's tumbler. I've actually stopped using pins. You can actually see my pins up here. I got them stored away. I'm actually just cleaning brass with hot water and using Dawn and Lemmy Shine now. I don't even use pins. It seems to be working out pretty darn good for me. Then after that, I use my Lyman Cyclone case dryer. Awesome product. Small footprint. Dry 100, 200 pieces of brass in less than an hour, usually about an hour. Awesome product. I highly recommend getting that. And then once it's usually dry after that, then that's when I'll usually anneal. And make sure you guys are in the picture here. Moving you guys all over the place. And that's usually when I'll anneal. Now, new brass, brand spanking new brass will show a really distinctive annealing mark. And you can tell if a piece of brass has been annealed well, if that annealing mark goes down roughly about 1/4 of an inch from where the neck meets the top of the brass here, or the body of the brass. So you want that annealing mark to be about 1/4 of an inch down from the top of the body. If it goes down, definitely if it goes down halfway down the body, you way over annealed the brass. If you don't see any annealing mark on the body, that means you under annealed. And I know guys use Tempolac, and it's a hotly debated topic. Personally, I just don't do it. I think it's just too much screwing around. I just like to use the glow method and get it done and move on. And my annealing marks are always exactly 1/4 of an inch down the body by using the glow method, like I've shown you guys in this live feed. So, but you know, if you just clean the brass has just been cleaned, that will show annealing marks really well. But like, you know, this is really tarnished brass, so it's not going to show that annealing mark that great. So let me check out some of your comments here before I head out. Let's see here. So American Reloader says, I don't use pins and it works fine. And I've used pins forever. Matter of fact, I got them right here. I used to use pins for the longest time, and I just got sick of separating the pins, and especially cartridges like 243 or 6mm pills, or when I say pills, bullets, 6mm bullets, and especially 6.5mm bullets like 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 Grendel. These pins are notorious for getting stuck in the case mouth openings, and it is super annoying. And one way you can get around not dealing with that, if you want to use pins, is use something like Southern Shine. They're more like stainless shavings or pellets, and they get stuck much less than the pins. It's pretty rare for them to actually get stuck at all, especially in the case mouth openings. But you still have to separate out the media, you know, and it's kind of annoying. And you know, I've always said this before, and I'll say it again: shiny brass is not accurate brass. Accurate brass comes from consistent headspace bumps. It comes from consistent neck tension, and just being consistent overall in your reloading room. And I'm just at that point where I just, you know, like you can see here, this stuff has been sitting around for 6 months. I don't care if it's shiny or not. I'll still print bug hole groups with this tarnished brass. So, oh man, good old Chico Wise in the house. Hi everyone, hit the like button. Thanks, my good friend. That's another awesome guy. He has a real passion for reloading. And check out Chico Wise's YouTube channel. Super nice guy. And like I said with some of the other guys, if you don't get along with that guy, there's something wrong with you. So Check out some of your other comments here. So Steve H says, are you getting clean primer pockets without pins? So that is going to be definitely one of the advantages of reloading with pins or pellets or media of any sort, is you're going to get very clean primer pockets. And I know some guys uniform the flash holes. I personally don't uniform flash holes. I've tried it. I don't see that much of an accuracy improvement by uniforming the flash holes, but it is important to make sure you have a clean primer pocket, especially when you're swaging the brass to remove the crimp in the brass. But usually, you know, if I'm going to uniform the primer pocket anyways using my uniformer, and that usually will clean up the primer pocket regardless. So I don't know. It is nice to have a clean primer pocket, especially when seating the primer. Obviously that helps. But for right now, it seems to be working out pretty good without using stainless steel media. So, so anyway, if you guys got anything else here, I don't know if I lost you guys here or not. Let me make sure I didn't lose you guys here. Looks like you're still here. DM Racer, he's on the channel, says, hey Todd, nice to have you along, bud. So the plow says, I use the RCBS media separator, works great, you know, and that's, you know, everyone's got a different method to their madness. I actually just use a $2 popcorn bowl with a $2 vegetable strainer if I was to use stainless steel media again to separate out that media. But man, I tell you, it's so nice not having to separate out that media anymore. God, it makes it so nice. And like I said, so far, I'm not totally concerned about it. So, let's see here. So Hitting Steel CA says, what primers are you using, Todd, on your precision round? So, so for me, I use pretty much all CCA primers. I got more primers. You can shake a stick at, boy. So I got I usually use CCA number 400 primers for small rifle primers. I actually do like using the CCI number 41 primers. They have a more robust, stronger cup on them. They're less prone to slam fires. And it says 4.556 ammunition. They typically will use this in military rounds. And that's typically what I'll use for large rifle primers. They're usually the CCI 200s. And I do have some pistol primers here. I bet you guys wish you had some of this, huh? Or some H4350. Oh man, I got more crap in here. I don't know what to do with it. Oh, some more Varget. What else you got in here? I got some. This stuff is like gold right now, boy. Like, God, I forgot I had all this back here. A little H4350. I don't know. I got more powder. I know what to do with. So anyway. All right. All right, let's see here. Let's see what else you guys got here. So hit Steel CA, yes, I need some Varget. Yeah, that Varget, any powder actually right now is super hard to get, especially now with this whole craziness going on. It seems like pistol ammunition is next to impossible. Try to buy some 9mm pistol ammo right now. It's super impossible to get. So, Easier 6 cover says we ordered a keg of 4350. Man, I love this stuff. H4350. If you're rocking stuff like 6mm, 6.5 pills, Man, I got so much. Got too many bullets. Is it possible I have too many bullets? So each one of these boxes has 500 bullets in it. Man, if you're rocking like a 6.5 Creedmoor, I'm a huge fan of Sierra Match Kings, boat tail hollow points. They just seem to perform no matter what I put them in. 6mm, 107 grain for my 243 RPR. You know, I just started reloading for my 6.5 Grendel, which I'm rocking the 123 grain hollow point bolt tails. Just got done reloading the load development for the PSA 6.5 Grendel review series. If you guys aren't familiar with that series, it's ongoing right now. I'm going to be shooting these reloads here really soon. I got some 123 grain ELD match bullets here that has Varget at 27.7 grains of powder, and then the 6.5 Grendel with the 123 grain SMKs with XBR 8208. So that should be on the channel by next weekend, I'm thinking. So see what else you guys got here for questions. Yeah, a bunch of you guys are down there in powder. I feel bad for you guys if you guys didn't stock up on that. So Annie Scruggs says, Jesus, like a clown car. Jugs keep on coming out of that cabinet. Trade you a case of toilet paper for that bargain. I bet, you know, I bet I could get a whole truckload. I'd probably get a whole semi of toilet paper for this bargain. So yeah, if you guys got any other questions, let them rip. Otherwise, I'm going to shut this down here. And if you guys want to get a little bit more detailed video, I already have the damn near the exact video on how to use this annealer already on my channel. So check that out, especially the video on how to make this do-it-yourself annealer with a parts list in the description box below. So other than that, like I said earlier, keep on scratching my back and I'll keep on scratching your back with these videos. Become a Patreon. I can't express in words how much that helps me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video.